Late one evening at a house owned by a man named Dabney, a group of guests is trying to share supernatural stories. One after another, the tales fail to land. They lack the specific, lived-in detail that makes a ghost story actually feel dangerous. Sitting among them is a stranger, a little man with a pale, anxious face. He has been listening intently to the failures of the others, and when Dabney asks him to contribute, he claims to have an experience that completed itself only that very afternoon. He dismisses the idea of hearsay. To him, truth is vastly stranger and far more interesting than fiction. He promises a sequence of events that science cannot explain. The room goes quiet. The guests are no longer just listeners. They are witnesses to a man who seems genuinely haunted by a truth they are about to hear. This photograph shows the kind of aging architecture found in Great Ormond Street, London. It was here, in a damp room inside a similar house, that our narrator first noticed the anomaly. A patch of dampness on the distempered wall had begun to shift. While other patches grew or changed their shape, this one remained constant, slowly resolving into the distinct features of a human man. During a severe bout of influenza, the narrator is confined to his bed. With no company and nothing to do but meditate, the face on the wall begins to take a firmer hold of his mind. The isolation of the sick room accelerates his fixation. The face becomes more than a curiosity. It becomes an individual, a roommate that dominates his thoughts day and night. Even as his health returns, the obsession remains. He becomes convinced that a living man with this exact face exists somewhere in the city, and that their lives are linked by fate. The narrator's physical illness serves as the pivot point, where a simple trick of light and dampness transforms into a frantic, all-consuming search. The search becomes a mania. As you see in this busy historical street scene, London was a sea of anonymous faces. Our narrator stands at corners and stations for hours, scanning every man who passes. Then, the moment arrives. In the back of a taxi, like the one shown in this vintage photograph, he sees him. Every line and contour matches the face on his wall. He follows the taxi to Charing Cross Station. This photograph shows the scale of the terminal, where the narrator frantically pursues the stranger through the crowd toward the boat train. The chase reaches the coast. This image shows the harbor at Folkestone, where the narrator manages to board the same steamship as the mysterious stranger, determined to speak to him before they reach France. On the deck of the ship, the narrator finally confronts the man. He stammers an apology and asks for a calling card, desperate for some way to communicate with the person who has occupied his thoughts for months. The stranger complies, likely believing he is dealing with a madman. The card reveals a name that seems to confirm the impossible: Mr. Ormond Wall of Pittsburgh, USA. The definitive confirmation of the supernatural link arrives weeks later. A newspaper report describes a critical motor accident involving an American millionaire near Pisa. At the exact moment Mr. Ormond Wall died of his injuries in Italy, the face on the wall in London faded away and disappeared. For the listeners at Dabney's, the evidence is overwhelming. The name, the face, and the precise timing of the death appear to be undeniable proof of a supernatural agency. Back in the present, the little man prepares to leave. He reminds the group that there were 3 extraordinary things about his story. He lists the first 2: the geographic connection between the wall and a man in America, and the fact that the man's name was actually Wall. Then, as he opens the door to leave, he delivers the third: he made the entire story up about half an hour ago. This is an example of the unreliable narrator at work. By defining the rules of the world through a personal, supposedly true account, a storyteller can bypass a listener's skepticism. The narrator's power didn't come from the supernatural, it came from his absolute confidence. He understood that by layering specific details and emotional stakes, he could force his audience to believe an impossibility. The architect of this deception is E.V. Lucas, the author shown here in this seated portrait. Lucas was a master of the short essay and used his sharp observation to manipulate the reader's perspective. He begins with personification. By describing the damp patch as having individuality and the face of a man, he transforms a physical blemish into a character the reader starts to care about. Lucas then escalates the situation through hyperbole. He uses the narrator's illness to justify an intense, world-altering obsession that wouldn't make sense in a healthy frame of mind. Even the name Ormond Wall is a calculated piece of irony. It links the American millionaire back to the physical location of Great Ormond Street, providing a sense of circular fate that the reader mistakes for a supernatural pattern. The little man's opening claim was that truth is stranger than fiction. But through this exercise, Lucas demonstrates that fiction is capable of overriding our sense of reality if the story is told with enough precision. If a made-up story can create such a profound sense of wonder and fear in a room full of people, it suggests that the real supernatural force isn't found on a wall. It's found in the human imagination.